Hey Manik, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. So I want to start our conversation with, for the audiences who don't know about Omnify, what is Omnify?
Sure. A pleasure to be here, Nataraj, and happy to obviously share our journey as well. To start with, Omnify, today we are what we call a service e-commerce platform, right? So we work with service businesses across, especially in recreation, sports, fitness, activity segment. And basically what Shopify does for product e-commerce, right? We do something similar for service e-commerce to help them sell their services online. With that, manage their scheduling, customers, all their internal communication all in one place.
So is it fair to say it's a CRM system for service businesses?
Yeah, so what we saw as a problem was that softwares have been put into these categories, right? And of
Mm-hmm.
course, software started as a vertical solution, right, for enterprises. So it made sense, or it came from its predecessors of ERPs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But for small businesses, generally the challenge is that, CRM is one thing that you need, right? So fundamentally, as a small business, what do you need? You need a CRM, right, to manage your customer data. You need today with that, what you need is a digital interface that your customers expect to interact with, right? For every business, what we call the Uberification of services, right? So what Uber did was, people don't want to call for a cab, right? And you just press a button to get a service that you need, and it's sort of trickling down into other services. And what we saw was every business more or less is shifting, having their, whether it's the website or a mobile app, a way for their customers to interact, whether it's buying their services, booking their services, or just managing their accounts with the business, right? So that digital interface becomes a critical piece between the business and the customer, right? So your CRM, your digital interface. So with that, you need payment gateway. You need, so your all your customer data, all your business workflows on the back end, everything sort of need to be aligned, right? So we look at our software as more of a platform for these businesses to, instead of getting five different softwares, trying to figure out how do you patch it together, make a workflow. We built a whole software that goes from your backend to your customers, how they interact, right? So CRM is a part of it. On top of that, you get your your websites run on us, your booking system, payments, literally your staff schedules, everything is runs on Omnify.
So who's your primary customer? Who's your core customer that you're currently targeting towards?
So over the years, because what we're really building goes across a lot of segments. Definitely, if you look at within this, services space, fitness would be one of the segments where there are enough softwares, right? Or maybe wellness as well, like spas and stuff. There's still SaaS solutions out there, but they're like literally 100 other categories that do not have a software built for their category, right?
Hmm.
But interestingly, a lot of them have similar problems, right? So uh, for all, scheduling is a problem, right? And selling online means you can't sell what you can't schedule, right? Scheduling is like your inventory, right? So without inventory management, how do you sell online? So this, your selling, scheduling, and customer communication needs to work together, right? That's how your whole workflow would literally work, right? And so we bring that together, and it's flexible and configurable enough for you to set it up the way you run your business. So right, and what we're seeing is, especially when it comes to small businesses, is it doesn't have a format, right? So you have You can have same businesses operating very differently, while different businesses in different categories who operate very similarly, right?
Mm,
So how do you cater to that, right? So if we go only category specific, then we eventually, we end up building another solution for the larger categories, right,
mm,
where it's
mm.
more consolidated. But that there are already solutions for that, right? But within
Yeah.
that segments like fitness and wellness, also there, the smaller new age businesses gets left out because their model doesn't fit into the fitness traditional model, right? So those kind of things. So how we look at our category is more of, we have a few use cases on how you can sell, how you can schedule, right? As long as you fit into that, it works for us.
Mm,
You can leverage our software well, right?
mm,
uh, Saying that, today with the kind of feature set that we have, I would probably say, some of the categories that work really well for us is recreation, sports coaching, and fitness, of course. With that, we also, with it, and recreation is a big space, right? So within recreation, we work from uh, small kids activity businesses to um, all the way to recreation departments of a few cities, right, for their rec centers. So it's still wide enough from a customer standpoint, from size, and as long as they have um, heavy operations on scheduling with the customers, they are looking to go digitize the business and put this digital interface for their customers and sell online. It's definitely, that's where Omnify provides value. So we really don't go very focused on category, but these are the broad categories that work. Omnify works really well for,
mm.
and sort of focus our efforts towards those more.
Yeah, when I actually first saw Omnify, one of the uh, thoughts that entered my mind is, I mean, if you look at Shopify, right? Shopify, before Shopify, we had WordPress. You could technically do most of the things you could do on Shopify using WordPress, but it's a hodgepodge mixture of, multiple plugins, and there's a setup cost, there's an education cost. But when Shopify came into the picture, you can basically say out of the box, you just log in, you have the store right there. So when I saw Omnify, it sort of gave me the same feeling that, hey, you can accomplish a lot of things with something like a WordPress or, some other tool that are out there. But if you just pick a specific use case of fitness or recreation, okay, Omnify has this specific solution, and you can just, grab and run from there. Is that a fair assessment?
Right, absolutely. I think that's one of the ways we would already always looked at our offering, and definitely, I think we really focus on an integrated experience, right? And that's where, for a small business, the biggest challenge. See, globally, there's a whole shift on digitization, right?
Yep.
What it means is, what probably started with the .com era, where everybody wanted a domain name, right, or a static website, right?
Mm,
Today, what that really means is your business is operating online, in the sense your operations are online. You're managing cloud-based softwares to manage your business internally. Your CRMs are online, right, and
yeah.
your website is no more a static website. It becomes an interface where your customers are buying online and interacting with your business online, right?
Mm,
And of course, and with this, there is a set of businesses that deliver services also online through Zoom, right?
mm,
So this digitization is sort of, the biggest barrier to this is, for businesses, is as a small business, if you have to first figure out a solution with multiple softwares, right? Every software takes, no matter how simple you build it, it takes a little, there's a learning curve, right? So you
yeah.
go through the learning curves of multiple softwares, and then try and figure out how each one should fit in with, the other one. You literally need consultants to help you with that, right?
Mm,
Of
mm,
course, products like Zapier help,
yeah.
Zapier, but still it takes literally I mean, everybody can't do it, right? It narrows down the kind of people who can actually afford time, effort, and resources to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where it leaves out the big portion of businesses that are not able to go digitize their whole business, because there's something that will be left out,
Hmm.
right? So if you put a payment gateway on your website, but you're literally managing everything on Excel sheets,
Yeah.
it doesn't make a difference in your business, right? It's just a way to, okay, you simplified one problem of taking payments, but it adds to another problem of managing and mapping those payments to something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the workflows become key, right? And unless you bring the whole business online, your workflows won't work. And for that, you need an integrated solution, right? and
Hmm.
and that's where we believe where we can really have an impact, where we're trying to build Omnify as a solution for anyone, literally, to go online, right? Especially, after the pandemic, there are a lot of people out of jobs, and at the end of the day, and obviously it will be boon in some ways to micro entrepreneurship, right? And
Hmm.
it'll all start with people offering services,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And of course, everybody can't build products and manufacture products and sell products, right?
Yeah.
So it'll come down to a large portion of people getting into services, and whatever, teach online, whatever, go through a course, train,
Hmm.
uh, so all of that, they'll need a solution, right? So we're really building Omnify from that perspective, where anybody should be able to set up themselves, have everything up and running across what they need, right? The most important pieces, right?
Hmm.
It helps them really digitize their business and provide this digital interface for their customers.
Taking a step back, can you talk about how Omnify started and like how was your journey been till 2020?
So it's I'll try and keep it short, because our journey has been long enough. In fact, I just realized I'm sort of this January I'll be completing about 10 years of a personal entrepreneurship journey, right? And over these 10 years, right, I've gone from not understanding what to do, and I'll probably run through it fast enough just to give a sense of it. The first business I started was right after my master's, and that was more of like I wanted to build like a social network kind of solution for sports,
Hmm.
right? Where you can find people to play with, find places to play at, book those places, and things like that, right? And of course, it came from a personal problem when I was studying in England, where I used to play football. I couldn't really, I was new to the ecosystem. So for me, it was like a challenge to find either people or places. I didn't know anything, right? So somewhere it was something that I really felt that I wanted to do. But I had no clue. This was back in 2010, 2011 early, that I didn't know where to start. So I was like, okay, let me start by starting a sports business, right? So I started a local league when in New Delhi, right? And that was the time I spent from 2011 to 12, was more of actually figuring out, trying to run a local sports business, amateurs, and understand the challenges. I thought we'll sort of scale up revenues and maybe start working on building something. And eventually we realized it's so hard to actually do that. By 2012, I've quit that, and I started something where like, okay, let's build a product, right? So by end of
Hmm.
2012, I started working on building something, again, towards the same social sports platform. And by 2013, so 2013, I moved to Bangalore, where I got got into like a accelerator program. Again, accelerators were new in India at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So we were part of an accelerator where we were like the batch zero, right? Their
Yeah.
experimental batch. But it was a good time because I was a single founder then, so you just need that push to
Mm-hmm.
like some validation to work on it. So 2013, I actually from 12 to 13 I had a couple of guys built out the product, first version of that, more like a league management software, right? So we started with that, a little bit of social bits to it, but more like um, uh, you can basically, as a player, you can register your teams on the platform. You can be part of these leagues. So there's a league management for the league organizer, and you track your performances across,
Mm-hmm.
right? What you're doing for the local ecosystem. So very exciting time. So 2013 was sort of going through that phase to launching it, trying to work and understand. And during that time, I met my co-founder, Kavandi, right? So she, is a good time. We also are part of another program with NASCOM, and so sort of had the ecosystem support in Bangalore for sure, right? Where we didn't really have to pay for an office. Had a fantastic set of peer group, other entrepreneurs around us, and literally we were at these accelerator or incubators, more or less around the clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just focused on doing this. But with our first product, what we really realized was it's super hard to scale, right? So we were very excited. People were very excited to use it. Of course, everybody, there was nothing like this for local sports.
Was it a
But for
mobile
us,
app or a website at that point?
it was web based at that time. So it had a business side for the league manager.
Mm-hmm.
So you can track literally, if you're part of a league, you can go to the league manager and say, oh, when is my next match? So it's a whole full scheduling, you're tracking performances, scores, everything, right? And there was a the each as an individual player, I can track it across leagues that I'm playing through the year,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was the goal. But we really saw that it's so hard to scale because everything, I mean, how do we realize the value of customer acquisition or user acquisition, right? And
Yeah.
for us,
Yeah.
it was literally uh, doing that user acquisition on ground, right? Because there was no platform where you can find these players,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you do that? So we took an approach of okay, let's try it with league organizers. With every league, you onboard, say, 500,000 players,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but it was still very on ground, and it felt like it would take forever for us to scale. And this was just one sport. We started with football,
Yeah.
and like if you have to go across another sport, we have to start from scratch in the same
Mm-hmm.
city. When we go to another city, we have to start from scratch for all sports.
Yeah.
So that was a problem where a network effect was very localized,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so scale would be a challenge. um, and so at that point we sort of pivoted, like, okay, maybe we also realized a couple of things where uh, while it was great for the end users, the league organizer, for them it was a good to have, right? For them, the
Mm-hmm.
biggest pain point was getting registrations.
Yeah.
So good thing was we had built a enough customer base where we would send out these SMSs whenever a new league came on board,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they get registrations immediately. So they were literally, and we were charging them from day one. We were charging, like, I think 10-12% of the entry fee,
Mm-hmm.
um, to be part of the platform, and they had to use the full platform.
Yeah.
felt like the league organizers were signing up to get the registrations
Hmm.
while having a good to have as a league management tracking and all that, right? While
Yeah.
players really liked it. So model was sort of something that would work, but they're like, okay, we're not really solving the pain point for the league organizer.
Hmm.
And that's where we're like, okay, maybe. And during that time, there were other challenges like how do you take payments, right? Literally, you have to go across town to collect fees, right? And simple things like having your website as a local sports organizer, having a payment gateway, that itself was a challenge. Only way to do it was through, say, an Eventbrite or third party.
Yeah.
um,
2013 even sounds like like 20 years ago or something currently in internet time.
yeah, absolutely, I know. And that's where we thought, okay, let's simplify it a bit. Let's just focus on giving any local sports activity provider, let them set up their website and payment gateway with ticketing built in.
Hmm.
And if in make it instant, it will solve at least one problem well, right? And that time, it was a time when getting a payment gateway meant a ton of paperwork. You had to pay like a set of fee and whatnot, and then integration was a pain.
Hmm.
So
We didn't have
we
UPI back then.
nothing.
Mhm.
So we and there was a time when Paytm was a payment gateway,
Yeah.
right? So that was the first thing where we at least saw the value, where anything out of the box was like literally you go online, sign up, and you can set up your website and with event ticketing and
Hmm.
payment, right?
Is this the same time you scrapped and because your product was not scaling well and restarted it?
Yes, absolutely. So that was the first time where like we spent like months, more than actually 6 8 months to build something, take something to market and completely scrap it.
Hmm.
And we built another product. We also tried to change the stack, say build a more like a single page app on some new framework.
Hmm.
And uh, good thing was that sort of built the seed for the kind of simplicity what we wanted to bring in to a platform. But we were targeting wrong segment. We were working the most of the activity and sports organizers, locally at that time, what we were targeting.
Hmm.
uh, I mean, for them, they're all seasonal businesses. And again, at the end of the day, it all came down to the core problem. The biggest problem was still getting registrations, right?
Hmm.
And at that point, we couldn't find a really good model to charge them,
Hmm.
because they were SaaS wouldn't work, right? Because they can be seasonal, they can, they use it for a few months, then they're not using, and then they might not have enough registrations and whatnot, right? So
Yeah.
we tried different models, but it just felt that we're just targeting the wrong segment, right? And at during that time, of course, we had worked with most of the leagues and that were happening in some of the facilities. So we're like, okay, why don't we focus on more on facilities, since the business is around the year, you've built it literally, so
Hmm.
you have to run it. And at the end of the day, everything is happening on these facilities, right? Whether it's events, leagues, or coaching,
Hmm.
and they have to rent out the space also. So the whole booking the venue thing sort of came in. So we're like, okay, let's we then after that we scrapped that again
Hmm.
next year.
Hmm.
And started building a third product, which was more focused on, okay, how do we help a facility more, who like a sports club, who have multiple facilities and stuff. help them with renting out their courts or events or coaching, right? Whatever. So we started there, started building a third product, and this was sort of during while we were building, we I interacted with a lot of businesses locally.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we really learned is we're like, okay, we're just targeting the wrong geography, right? So
Mm-hmm.
because the expectation at that point was more of a service, not of a software, right? So while initially our intention was to really learn from the businesses, so I would actually go and spend the full day at one of these facilities, work from there to understand how they operate, right? To build in those workflows and stuff for them. But I think the problem was they started taking it as a service, and because it was early while we were building, we couldn't charge them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up becoming a free service.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, okay, and the expectation everybody had was a very custom solution.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like, okay, we will not be able to really build. I mean, our vision was always to build a global product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we always, since I started, I've been going to all these local events, startup events, and in the ecosystem, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
gyan that you get is all of at that point, at least everybody was talking about was go with your local market first and then expand from there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized as a SaaS solution, if you try and do that, you end up building a local product,
Yeah.
right? And that's where we started feeling it, where like, okay, it doesn't feel like if you work with this customer base, we're gonna build anything which can scale globally. And that was the point where we thought, okay, let's just change the way we're thinking. Why aren't we going global? It's been, this was our third product.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, if we have to spend next 5-10 years of our life doing this, why don't we just go global first, right? Why don't we flip it?
Mm-hmm.
We got set up done in US, set up the company there, and we started again rebuilding the platform a little. And from day one, we started with the thing where we felt like it is a global problem,
Mm-hmm.
right? um, but we didn't have a validation, so we're like, okay, if it is a problem, hopefully people will be searching for the solution,
Mm-hmm.
right? So our biggest thing that we had to do was to be found if they're looking for a solution.
Mm-hmm.
So we focused on at least getting it out there, a little bit of content, our website, and doing basic SEO. And thankfully, we started getting leads where customers from across the world were at least talking to us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that gave us a platform to really build a global product, right?
How did you think about SEO at that point of time? Like, how did you optimize? Were there any techniques that you guys followed so that you become more searchable? Because I mean, even today, like SEO is a tough thing,
Yeah,
and
I think honestly, we did the basic stuff at that point. We, uh, luckily we launched our website on Webflow, which takes care of your basics, right?
yeah, yeah.
Absolute basics. So it's structured well, and then it's all about content.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is a time when it was literally, I think in last SEO, I would say, has become a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
than it was 10 years back, because earlier it was more about these tagging and all that. It's still there, but it's search engines have become smarter in a way where now it's more about your content, as long as, and there are tools which do the basics right.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's all about the content. You build quality content, you will get some traffic with that. So of course, if you have to really nail it down, you have to go deep.
Yeah,
But at some leads, it doesn't take a lot,
yeah, yeah.
right? And that's the position where we were. This was 2015, so we sort of took. We had now had customers signing up from different geographies and talking to us. We're getting on calls and really taking a lot of feedback. Interestingly, from day one, we at least had like a beta ready, right, before
Mm.
we went. So for us, there was a starting point, which was our thought process on the solution. But then that also gave us learning from what are their actual problems, right?
Mm.
And from day one, we had some pricing up. So we knew people we were talking to are genuine buyers. So they're not just coming here for getting a free solution, right? Which we were used to earlier.
Mhm.
So that really, I think, gave us a platform, and it changed the way we build the product, right? And it was literally uh, built with these customers, right? And that with that 2015 to 2016 was this period where we were building the platform, working with these businesses, whoever was coming in. Um, One of the things that we learned during that time was because it was inbound, right? We didn't really have control over targeting, right? While we started with sports facilities, we were getting all kinds of businesses who were signing up,
Mm.
right? Across segments. And I think sometime mid 2016 is where we started looking at it very differently. Because with LinkMySport, we are obviously getting customers from sports, but there are a lot of fitness businesses who are signing up, and they were using the platform. And for us, it just felt off, right? Because our name also doesn't even look like you're for fitness, right, or for wellness or some other services. And that's where Omnify sort of came into being. um, our whole thought process shifted. We looked at our we did an exercise where we looked at all our customers who had signed up,
Mm.
not just customers but prospects as well, who signed up, probably didn't use the product, but they were looking for the solution, and what they were looking for. And
Mm.
what we realized was, fundamentally, same thing that we now really operate on with Omnify is, fundamentally they all need these core things: their scheduling, their selling the services, and their communication, right? These are three core things. And then their workflows, use cases.
Yeah.
So and we could see patterns, like I said, two different businesses operating very similarly, while two similar category businesses operating differently. So it was more use case driven, and we could see that these are untapped categories, or these are like categories where there's no software available for them, or the ones that are available are legacy, right? So we could see that, okay, there's a lot of opportunity across these 50 segments, and all of them can use our platform. And we had customers from across multiple segments using our platform successfully. So we're like, okay, so let's I think we can build a horizontalish platform, not truly horizontal, but at least one multiple categories, because we didn't know how to categorize them, right? At the end of the day, a software, you build a software for a category, and that's how you create a category, right? But
Mhm.
for us, we could see there's a wide enough category of these multiple segments that we can go after. And that's where sort of our pivot to Omnify happened. We rebranded everything, and we changed the approach on how we were, a little bit on how we build software, right? So now every feature request will look at, how do we scale it across multiple use cases,
Mm.
right? How do we, so while it made our job more difficult from a product point of view, right? We also knew that this is, and this is one of the problem that we're solving is large enough for us to build, for longer term.
Mhm.
and
And
and, and truly that, the whole vision of Shopify for services.
yeah, I mean, to me, when I first encountered Omnify, it was surprising because I thought a booking and communication problem was already solved, right? But when I did a little bit more research, and then I realized that all the approaches were like, okay, we give you the out of the box software, just like WordPress, and you can technically do it, but no one is giving you the most simplest form of solution that would work for my use case. I think that's where, at least as an outsider, I see where Omnify succeeded as a product.
Right, and I think today also it looks the same. From outside, you'll see it feels like a cluttered category where there are like hundreds of scheduling applications, right, or appointment booking applications. But but honestly, that only does one part of the job, and it doesn't even do the whole justice to scheduling, because as a business, if you're talking to, for example, if you take I mean, probably the most complex use cases would be with a rec center, right? You have facility rental, which operates absolutely differently than group classes or events or personal appointments, right? Each one needs a different solution, literally, right?
Yep.
And you would have to today, if it is not Omnify, you would literally have to take multiple solutions to get this under one hood, right? And this is just scheduling right now. So what we realize is scheduling is where you need some of them have simpler scheduling needs, some of them have these complex multiple scheduling needs,
Hmm.
but all of that needs to be under one platform if we have to help them sell all of this together,
Yeah.
right? And then when you sell, most services are recurring in nature, right? So you sell these services online, either as a single session, or you will be selling it as a package or a subscription or a membership,
Hmm.
right? And so that's more of the goal was, how do we productize the whole experience of selling services, right? uh, because one thing, at the end of the day, one thing that has helped product e-commerce really thrive is the standardization on how you sell, right?
Hmm.
And maybe the marketplaces like Amazon brought that standardization, where all you had to do was make sure you follow a similar practice on selling, right? You invent everything, and again, it was preceded by all these retailers, right? So
Yeah.
if you're selling products, it doesn't matter what product are you selling, right? Because it's all sold in the same way. Inventory management is the same, shipping, everything is more or less same
Yeah.
standard, right? For services, it's still very complex, right? And that's what we are really trying to do, is how do we standardize a similar thing for services segment. And obviously it becomes a lot more complex with scheduling,
Hmm.
right? And help productize the whole selling experience for services, and really help these businesses automate a lot of it, going forward, right? So how you sell, and then how you manage your business, if you're able to bring in this automation. I mean, anyways, if you put a digital interface, half of more than half of your day-to-day job is gone, because customers are basically self-managing their
Hmm.
own accounts, their own requests, right? But most of these businesses end up spending majority of their time in customer requests,
Yep.
right? Or interfacing, which literally saves you that time and resources to focus on something else. And then once you have scheduling, selling, communication all in one platform, you can automate a lot, right? And
Yeah.
that's where we are evolving to bring in a lot more automation into the business as well.
Yeah, one of the things you touched upon is, that giving back time to the customer. Like whenever I evaluate any business or any idea, the simplest way to look at it is how much time can you give back to your customer. Like for example, Amazon, right? What Amazon does is it gives back customer their time. It is literally that, right? You don't have to go to the shop. You don't have to, spend time on worrying about shipping. It just works and it gives back customer all his time. If you put any idea in this format, you can basically see what the value add is. And
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to look at it. I always looked at it on saving time, but giving time back seems better.
yeah, because time is money, right? I mean, you can't get more You can get everything, but not time. Uh, I want to talk about your current customer exposure, right? You have now talked about, okay, the India model is not working, and you've shifted to serving customers globally. And what is your current customer diversity like? Is it primarily US based, or where are your customers right now coming from?
Um, our customers today are spread across over 30 countries. Um, but majority of our customer base is in North America. So that also, while I would say it was US would always account for over 40% of our customer base.
Hmm.
Now it would be close to about 80.
Got it. Is
With
that because of the pandemic?
Yes, it did. 40 to 50% would be an average of before that, and now it is 2020 changed that, and because I think 2020 we had to go through a whole new survival. It's like the whole year started with a survival mode on, and figuring out how do we work with businesses, as majority of our businesses were very customer, it all was customer interaction, right? Our
Hmm.
customers, everyone was in sports, fitness, activity, recreation, anything you pick up ever shut down,
Hmm.
right? And uh, a small segment could go online, but it was still hard, right? So for us, we had to really look at how do we survive. So and that ways, I think because we tied up with a partner where we sort of picked up a new solution, in the sense from what how Omnify is used, that helped us survive also. But at the same time, a grow we also had a good growth in 2020, and this was majorly in US. So that's why the shift sort of happened in the geography.
So initially, during the start of the pandemic, you had a big dip, and then as businesses started coming back online, now you see a new demand.
Um, Actually, that's a natural cycle, but that's a slower cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have that would have been a lot longer dip if we would wait for demand to come back, and
Mm-hmm.
especially with the uncertainty, right? So we've been we've been at least 2019 to 20 was a lot of bootstrapping, right? So we literally making payroll every month, right? Just about making payroll every month, and on top of that, so we didn't have any reserves, and on top of that, if your all your customers start churning or pausing their subscriptions because their business is shut down, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we couldn't have survived for, like, if most of the businesses actually took about 5 to 6 months to start coming back online,
Mm-hmm.
right? Opening up or reopening started in August, September.
Yeah.
So from March, so we wouldn't have survived that. So we in fact, we kicked off the April quarter last year with a theme of fight to survive with our team,
Mm-hmm.
and internally also we did like a hackathon, ideathon actually, to sort of bring in ideas from the whole team to figure out how do we survive, right? What do we do? The good part was we had a product solution which is super flexible, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had worked with multiple categories, and we knew that for us a pivot would have will be easy, because we don't have to change a lot in our platform, right? That's the If we were very category focused, right, and that category shuts down, your business doesn't work for others, right? So all SaaS products, which were say for hospitality, for example, right, were really uh, they took the hit. For us, because we had multiple segments, so for us, first thing we did was integrated deeper with Zoom to make sure that all our fitness businesses can, or anybody who is able to deliver their services online, can continue, right, to do so for their customers, so they can stay afloat while their businesses, physical locations are shut.
Yeah, one of the things Omnify does, and the trend I'm very excited about, is that this idea of building from India to the global audience. If you compare that to, like, for example, in the 90s, we had a big labor arbitrage, right? We have the Infosys, TCS, and everyone else being outsourced. The US companies were outsourcing essentially the labor to India, and the advantage was on the people who were doing the outsourcing. And now it's sort of like reversed, right? I'm seeing a new trend of SaaS companies, especially, which are thinking about creating products globally. So the complete advantage or the arbitrage is towards the Indian founders, and it's sort of called the product arbitrage is towards the Indian founders. So that is very exciting to see, and I'm glad Omnify survived the pandemic. And in fact, also, from what you're saying, is it's also thriving
Right.
once this, we got back to a little bit normalcy.
From a perspective of building for the world, I think there are only few things that you need. You need to understand how acquisition channels work, right? And it really doesn't matter where you're sitting, right? In fact, if our whole team, so a majority of our team is in Bangalore, right? So if our whole team was sitting in Silicon Valley, we'll be doing exactly the same thing, right? So
Hmm.
that's the thing where, because we sell online, and especially to SMBs, right? If you're in enterprise, it's a different game, right? But if you're doing SMBs, SaaS, then I mean, it really doesn't matter where you're from, because you sell, everything is online, right? It's very marketing driven, and sales outside also is more or less inside sales. From day one, we focused on automation internally, right? So, till now we have no, we don't have a full-time administrator in our company, right? We don't have anybody to look at, say, invoicing, right? Because
Internet in general is like egalitarian, right? With
exactly,
pandemic, we basically went again probably a decade ahead of ourselves, and everyone will look at a product as a product. They'll not look at it as an Indian product. I just want a booking solution. I can use Omnify. It doesn't matter if it is
right,
in from India or US. If the product works, it works.
exactly. So, yeah. So the competition really, honestly, from that perspective, it doesn't matter. You have pros and cons for both. India definitely gives you longer runway, right? For which we had those that early on, for us to survive so long and keep pivoting, right? Because because of the cost of living wasn't high enough for us to sort of, we can survive, for a longer time. That, I think, which is more important during the early stages, right? So that also helps.
Are there any specific challenges in terms of customer support that you have to, you learned across the way? Like, I remember getting calls from, from Omnify sales team. I mentioned that with you in one of our previous conversations. Like, did you adapt, because since you have a global customers, did you have to do anything special in terms of customer support and sales?
Um, Honestly, not a lot. One thing we had to do was deliver. See, when you're selling a software at 49 to $200 kind of price range, right? Nobody expects support, right? Especially if you're selling in US, they don't. I mean, customers. Most of the customers don't even expect to have a human giving you support, right? And so what we did was, and definitely their intercom helped, right? So we've been using intercom for long enough, and probably you know probably the most amount of money we pay for any software, right? That is because we had a this real time line open for communication with the customers, right? Whether you're uh, and this was standard across all our customers. It doesn't matter how much you're paying us, you will have you know you'll have this real-time chat support available anytime, right? So that is, so one thing we had to do was to make sure how do we deliver this at scale. I won't call it scale, but with limited resources that we have, right? With just a few people, we still have a very small support customer success team. uh, but the good part is a lot of it is asynchronous, right? So asynchronous you can handle a lot more. And honestly, I really believe best of the products don't, I mean, you, if you're able to get to that point where you don't need, customers don't need enough support, then you've really done your job from the product perspective, right? But it takes time to get there. The whole company operates as customer success, right? Making sure our customers are going through that, and we're solving problems and learning from it, getting it into product, right? Some of them we solve with solutioning. Some of that is more of a Q&A. Some of that is more of technical challenges.
Slightly shifting gears, right? You've raised a couple of you've raised funds for Omnify a couple of times. Like, how was your funding experience like, and what do you see the pros and cons of current funding ecosystem in general?
Um, yeah, so I think we raised our first round early 2017. We started, I think, late 2016, just after we pivoted to Omnify, right? And I think that really helped crystallize our vision, what we wanted to do with the company. Um, from an angel perspective, we're lucky to get some of the best angels in the country to join early on. It definitely helped us along the way. We've made some mistakes also, where we sort of. I mean, one thing we did was we raised a smaller round. First round we raised, I think, was about 150K, and we one of the, I mean, for us, we are probably one of the first few companies, who at that point, sitting in India. We raised from India, but we were raising obviously in the US. We didn't have a network there, so it just made sense to raise from India itself. But
Mm-hmm.
we raised probably the first few companies to do a safe round,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was because since we started the company, one thing we didn't want to experiment was on the company model, right? It's we tried to keep it very standard, right? Delaware C Corp, make sure that we're doing things right from day one, where when we have to raise funds, when we have to, at any point, whatever stuff we have to do with the company, it shouldn't come out as an anomaly, right? So we standardize that part. Like, okay, let's keep all the innovation for the product. Let's not innovation on our company setup and all that.
Yeah,
And
that to that point, I mean, it's generally successful startups are rule breakers, but you can't keep on breaking all the rules.
yes, exactly. I mean, so that's where you learn from others' mistakes and try and see what is acceptable there, and we sort of try to keep it to that. But for us, we always looked at ourselves as a US company, right? The only thing is our team is sitting in India, right? Um, so for us, we cannot. I didn't want to, when we are raising our even our first round, I wanted to make sure that our valuations are okay, right? Because there's a big disparity in valuations for sure. expectation on valuation, right? If you raise your first round in US, the valuation there versus in India would be at least 3 to 4x, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at zero revenue there, right? The expectation here is by the time you raise your angel round also, you're doing revenue, or you have good traction and all that, right? Which again, in there, I mean, it might be regardless, it might be competitive elsewhere as well, but still, so I wanted to keep that standard. And the other part was we wanted to filter out and only get people on board who understand our business, right? Because then if you get angels who do not understand the complexity of what you're building, right? For us, what it means is long cycle. We're going after long tail, right? If you don't understand what it means to build a global business, SaaS business for SMB, you need to have patience, a lot of these things, which then becomes a problem later, right? So that was one thing that we wanted to filter. And we did a safe round as both to make sure it's standard as a US company, and it's a filter for everybody who's not okay with the safe round, right? So then you don't so it didn't fit into our ideal investor profile.
Mm-hmm.
So and since then we've mostly raised on safe. We've only raised on safe uh, until now. So the goal was, until we do our venture round, it doesn't make sense to do a price round before that. So we just made sure that obviously our cap kept increasing over the years.
What
uh,
is your view on I mean, I think there's been a recent argument about Indian companies registering outside India. What is your take on that? Because you are registered in Delaware, and obviously there are pros and cons for it. But I want to know, like, what is your take of whether or not to be registered outside of in India?
Um, so I think, from one thing I believed is, be where your customers are, right? Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to be in US, right? Otherwise, so it's like mentally, spiritually, we are there, physically, we're there, right? So as a company, if you're selling, obviously US, like I said, has been our biggest market, and then we sell across 30 countries, so we cannot be registered in 30 countries, so we have to choose one, right? Of course, US meant like the obvious choice, because everybody's comfortable buying from a US company across the world. So that definitely helps. With that, also, as you're building technology, right, your IP protection, the way it is in the US, compared to India, is obviously different, right? um, Tomorrow, and then the whole business environment and regulations come into the picture, where I've actually seen this around me, where few of my peers sold to US companies, and they had a fantastic experience on the transition, right, when they actually sell. And I've also had some of my friends who sold to Indian companies, and they've literally struggled even after 8 to 10 months. They're still struggling to figure out and get money in the bank, right? Even paperwork is not 100% done. So while the same process in US will be done in 2 to 3 months, right? So overall, it felt like everything, regulations, holds you back again there. And eventually, we know, as a company, today we sell in the US, right? So it makes sense to have the company there. uh, so we're building IP that is well protected there. And then third is your, if we have to exit, it will be in the US. Whether, I mean, it's more likely to be in the US. Even if it's not in the US, even if we sell, or best case scenario, go IPO, will be mostly in the US. If not, then even if it's outside US, it's easier to do that with a US company.
Mm-hmm.
uh, with,
Since you touched upon at the exit event, I'd I want to talk about the next vision of Omnify. So what is the next 2-3 years, or maybe 5 to 6 years for Omnify looks at, and what are you thinking about, product extension, or where do you see Omnify going overall?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely happy to share on that. So I think a baseline vision is the same. You know, building a parallel to what Shopify has done for product e-commerce. Um, what we really want to do, and that's where the whole service e-commerce bit comes in, right? Where it's more or less you know it's a new, we look at it as a new category that we're creating, right? While people talk about you know a lot of like you said, the booking softwares, appointment software, there's everything that we do today is sort of out there, but the way you position structure from your thought process, how you market it, how you position it, how you bundle it, and how you build the product, right, across is matters a lot. So our and that's where everything sort of has to align with the vision, right? So if you're building an integrated experience, right, for a small business to be able to sell any service online, um, set up in minutes, go online, and automate majority of your business, and we become the digital interface. I mean, for a simplest way to look at it is we're the buy button for the service economy, right? If you're
Mhm.
able to build that, and the digital interface for millions of businesses is what our vision is, right? Where their customer experience runs on us, while they have the freedom to build that experience, right? So we bring in enough standardization across the whole how services are sold and the workflows. At the same time, considering each one has their own way to run the business, right?
Mhm.
So the software should adapt to their business. um, so it's a we feel we might have taken a bigger challenge on us, to build as a company, right? Like, it's definitely easier to pick up a segment, go after that, build the product. It's easier to build the product and sell in one segment,
Mhm.
but when we go across segments, it's harder. But that's one of the things that we made always made hard choices for longer term,
Mhm.
right? Because, in short term it looks hard, but in long term, when you look back and you say, I'm glad I made that choice,
Mhm.
right? So for us, that's one of the key reason why we sort of that vision sort of keeps everyone aligned, right? So building for these multiple segments. So while there is I mean, at the same time, when we build the product, we all look at everything, right? We make sure that it's aligned to our vision, but our go to market can keep changing, right?
Mhm.
At every different point of time, you're able to get momentum in some segments, and you go after that segment, right? But that doesn't mean that you ignore everything else, right? So the platform is still has to evolve towards division, while a go to market can keep it's more of packaging on top of the platform that can be changing as go to market, and we're selling.
Yeah, I think one of the sectors I'm hugely bullish in next couple of years is the passion economy slash creator economy, right? Everyone is sort of becoming their own creator, and uh,
Yeah,
I mean, an Omnify sort of product is really about empowering anyone to be creator or service provider, and I see a real potential in the sector itself, and the sector itself has been like this year, even in the pandemic, it showed how little the internet adoption is still is, right? There's still a long way to go in terms of adoption of products and unbundling these services and providing specific services for
right,
specific service providers.
right. Absolutely. I think we're just starting there, right? Because now there's enough validation that enough people can do it, right? Anybody, but still it's a small blip when you compare to how, what is the potential, right? The how many people, the whole, like I said, generally good trends, whether you look at micro entrepreneurship, creator economy,
Mhm.
or you look at digitization in businesses. So the the good part is that while we do have a lot of businesses who are transforming from offline to online, how they operate and all that, right? The new ones that are starting start digital first,
Yeah.
right? And that's where a huge opportunity is there. Of course, there's a big opportunity in transformation also,
Mhm.
but that's a little harder because you have to change a lot, right? Changing behavior, changing that, it takes a little time, right?
Yeah,
So
I absolutely agree. So, I mean, it's fantastic to know about what Omnify is doing, and we're sort of end of our conversation. I want to know what sort of content that you consume. Like, what are the books, podcasts, or even who are the personalities that you're following, or you idealize, and where you get your sort of inspiration from.
right. So the podcast I would definitely recommend is the Startup Project.
Thanks.
But I think I would say the biggest source for all my content is Twitter, right?
Hmm.
Because um, it's more discovery, right? It's not just about following. Uh, while so I honestly I used to read books a long back. I've just started again. So reading Psychology of Money, and got a few more in my pipeline.
Hmm.
But this one thing that I definitely would recommend. Maybe it's just the phase that I am in.
This is
It's,
Morgan Housel's Psychology of Money.
yeah. So it's just amazing, and more. I mean, it just changes, or maybe aligns how you think
Hmm.
about making decisions, right? Um, but regardless, majority of my reading is online, short blogs to like I said, Twitter is my main source of content. uh, I mean, I don't even know how many people I follow, right? And so a lot of that is discovery. So it's not just few people that write and I read about that, but so I read about, obviously there are a few people in there who would write about SaaS, like Thomas Tungus has amazing short blogs, quick to read anytime, right?
Hmm.
And some of the they're good podcasts from, so Intercom does good podcasts, right? They're Inside Intercom.
Hmm.
uh, so that's good for more from a functional learning, and discuss, just to make sure that you're thinking about these functions differently. Beyond that, I think it's been all over the place. There are a lot of good content. A lot of these VC firms are churning out on business, right? So I read through. I mean, whatever I can. Anybody in my network on Twitter, shares, learn anything that I find interesting. That's my morning reading material, right? Or for next day.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
I mean,
but it's very streamlined from that perspective.
yeah, I mean, Twitter is a serendipity machine. I mean, you don't know what you'll find, but you can definitely
Yeah,
find some gold mine in that.
and now there's literally you don't even have to read blogs. Everybody is summarizing blogs into storms. So you just go through a tweet storm. And a lot of time, what I've realized is reading is probably one, for at least for me, best way to channelize my thought process.
Hmm.
Whenever I read something about a topic now, so it triggers a different kind of brainstorm for me to think about how we are doing things, right? So it's a great way, for me to sort of look at whenever I'm working on anything more creative or more strategy. It's definitely, I start with reading, right? So just pick up anything I might have saved from previous what I've read, or anything that I'm probably thinking about right now, and you just discover on Twitter somebody talking about it, like, oh, I want to read that.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely helps. You consolidate your thoughts more, and then you end up starting with a tweet storm. There'll be a link to a blog. You go to that. You like what they're talking about, and then there'll be a follow up, other blogs that they write about, right? So there's a lot of discovery bit through that
Mm-hmm.
process. So is it, for me, my reading has been very, very fluid that ways.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thanks for those recommendations. And this has been a great conversation, Manik, and thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Nataraj. Absolute pleasure to be here, being part of your journey as well, and being part of the startup project.
Thank you.